Hi everybody, we're into the next chapter doing functions. Functions are a way to break our code into reusable chunks. Our code is still procedural oriented, but we can now chunk our code and reuse it again and again and again. Well, a function starts out with def to define the function. Our function always has parentheses and a colon. One of the few, I guess you would call it punctuation marks in Python. So this is the main function. All programs and almost all programming languages have a main function. If you don't create a main function, Python creates it for you. So when Python looks at a function, it just says, oh, look at here. Here's a function. I should remember that. Then it looks at the next function. It says, oh, look at here. Here's a function. I should remember that. Then finally it gets down to here. This is called a function call. It's an executable statement that lines up to the left. So the first thing that happens is our code execution goes from here. It's calling the function. We jump up to here and start printing our message. Then we call the message function. We jump from here over to here, run our message function. Once that's done, we come back to here, print, message, run our function. So we've run this same function twice. We've not had to put in the code twice. Functions allow us to make our code a lot more reusable and more organized. Here's our next program. Kilometers to miles. We're going to convert kilometers to miles. Conversion programs are pretty common in beginning programming. Kilometers to mile is a global constant that gives us our conversion factor for kilometers to miles. Here's our main program function. Always we have a main program function whether we put one in or not. Another function we're going to remember, the program starts here. Calls main, goes up here. We get the distance from the user. Well, we've done that before. This variable lives inside the main function. So there's something called scope. Scope is the lifetime of a variable. This variable only applies here. I should probably have changed this to something else so that you can see that it's a different variable. Let's do that. Doesn't matter what I name this. This is still a different variable because it only exists inside of here. So I can take this value from this value from this variable, pass it over to here, pass the value, insert it into this variable, do my calculation, print out and display my answer. Once I leave this, km disappears. Once I leave this, kilometers disappears. This is called a local scope. Variable scope is how long is the lifetime of the variable. This variable only lives in here. This variable only lives in here. When we pass information from here to here, this is called a parameter. This is the argument. This is telling this function how to behave. So it doesn't do the same thing every time. Based on the number that gets passed through, we get a different result. Function, main call, go up to here, get an X and a Y number from the user. We can pass in as many arguments as we wish. The names don't matter, the position matters. If we pass a 1 into here, a 1 gets passed into here. If a 10 is passed in here, we get a 10 passed here. Remember, the value gets passed, not the variable itself. Because once we exit the main function, this variable lives here, but it does not live here. Once we exit the main function, everything gets thrown away. Once we exit the multiply function, everything gets thrown away. We can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as many variable parameters as we want. We've done a purchase price program before. We're going to get input. So we get the purchase price from somebody, we get the quantity from somebody. Ooh, look at here, we can return values. Well, in this case, we're returning 2 values. Python is the only language I know that can actually return multiple values. So once we do get input, these values are passed back to here. The order is specific, not the name. This one gets passed to here, this one gets passed to there. Now here we bring in 2 variables, the same ones that we had up here. Oh, are they the same variable? No. They're the value that's in the variable. They get put into here. This is something new, and I don't remember why I added in here, but this is something called type hinting. This way you know what type of variable is coming in and what type of variable is coming out. How is that useful? This shows that that's supposed to be a float coming in. This shows that's supposed to be an int coming in. Oh, see, I made a mistake there. That actually should be int, shouldn't it? Our total sale is a float because we're returning a float value. We're going to display the sale. When we get to display sale, we pass these 3 guys in: float, int, float. The values get passed into here. Blip, blip. Oh, wrong one. Blip, blip, blip. Remember, they're in order, not names. And then we can print out a little display sale guy here. Now this one is to help things line up. This is a little different than some of the things we've done before. If you do a colon greater than 15, that means that it's going to fill up to 15 characters and then put this information after it. So let's see what that one looks like. It's just a way to make things line up and look pretty. So our purchase price is 101.23, and the quantity is we'll buy 1 of them. There. See how that lines up nicely? 15, 15, 15. And because we have the greater than sign, it lines up to the right. So that's a nice, easy way to make your characters line up and look pretty. We're now going to make our code even more reusable and easy to reuse by using what's called a module. This is a module, and all it contains is a message function. It's going to print this out the same way every time. Doesn't matter whether we have parameters or not in here, doesn't matter. This is a separate file that we can then copy and paste into whatever folder we need. These are both in the same folder. They're right next to each other. I have opened up my tutorials folder. Everybody's nicely in alignment here. I can import the message module. That means that this code is also part of my program. To call the message method inside that program, I would do message module.message. Message module is the name of the file, but we don't refer to it as .py. Once we've imported that code into our program, we can use this wherever we want. If we want to call it again, or we can put it in different places, whatever we want to do. We'll start doing some reusable code and files that you can copy and paste into whatever folder you need. Since this message module is in these tutorials, I could use that same guy in every one of these programs if I wished. So this is very similar to a library, like we've imported requests before. But typically when you create it and it's on your local machine, it's called a module. Here is a little utility module that we can use again and again and again and again. And copy and paste it wherever you want. We're going to call it utils. I have utils_1. That's because I have different variations of it. You can just call yours utils. Now, how this works is if we call this as a program, it runs the program. However, we have some magic down here. If we're not calling the main function, we can use all the functions in here in a module, as a module. So this one is in here just to test to make sure it works. This is the part we're going to use. So from inside the program, I'm good to go here. I can run it as a separate program. However, if I want to use it as a module, it won't import it. Okay, here's our program. We've imported the utils. So we've imported this utils file. We're going to use the title method. There's the title method. And we're going to end up using it twice. We're passing in a statement. This is our statement, or our title might be a better word. When we run this, we call the function twice, and we get this beauteous looking title. Well, how does that work? We get the length of the statement. So say this statement is 3 characters long. The statement itself is 3 characters long. So we get 3 dashes, lines up with that. We get the statement, 3 characters. We get the text length, 3 characters. We're multiplying the length times dashes. We're multiplying the length times dashes. So we have 3 dashes right on top and the bottom of the statement. The plus signs are not for addition and subtraction. They're for what's called concatenation. So I am adding together all of this into one single string and returning that string. That means I could use this in a web program, in a graphical user interface program. I've separated my specific operation from how I display it. And that's why over here I'm printing this. And we will reuse this guy again and again and again. Here's another example. I have an is-even method. Num modulus 2, if we have number 2, modulus 2 has no remainder. Remember, the modulus is our remainder operator of integer math. If we have 3 modulus 2, we get 1. If we have 4 modulus 2, we get 0. If we have 5 modulus 2, we get 1. So we're always returning either a 1 or a 0. If x is true, then it's even. If x is false, it's odd. Well, where are we getting this x and everything from? Well, in most programming languages, 0 is true, 1 is false. I know that seems kind of backwards, but it is. So it's a Boolean value. So the modulus of 2 equals 0 is, maybe it is 1 that's true. Regardless, it returns true or false. If even of this is true, we go down here. If even of this is false, we go down here. I think it's 0 for false and 1 for true. That's a good one to look up in case I don't have it right. So we're calling it from in here. We've imported the if even module. And look at there. Works the same way. And I don't have to recreate this code again and again. Remember, the main function is only to test this out. This is the only part we're using from this module. We've created our own program. So we can use this with any kind of interface we want. A module makes our functions reusable. Python has lots of math libraries, and in those libraries there's lots of functions. We're importing math. The only reason we need math is for the built-in value of pi. So math.pi is a constant in Python that gives us the value of pi up to, 16 characters. Let's run it. Gives us the value of pi up to, whatever that is. So then we can have an absolute value. Absolute value does not care whether it's minus or plus. It automatically makes it plus. Min looks at the 3 of these and finds the smallest one. Well, which of these is the smallest one? -2. Which of these is the biggest? 3. Round takes z, rounds it off, to 1 decimal place. Well, what does ceiling do? Well, it rounds it up, so this becomes a 2. Floor rounds it down, it becomes a 1. So ceil and floor truncate whatever float coming in to an integer. Power, what's this power business? Well, x to the power of 2. What's the square root of y? Well, these are very common math functions we'll be using as we go. And there's all our answers. Guess I should have put in what they were, and then I'd know what the answers meant. We've worked with random numbers before, but we're going to get a little fancy this time. Notice that I said from random, we're going to import the randint function. That means I'm not getting all the code out of the random module or library. I'm just getting just this function. From the time module, I'm getting sleep. Here's my range of numbers. I've declared a main function. I have to declare a variable here if I'm going to use it here. So this is like an accumulator. So I'm going to generate a random number with these two constants, 1 to 100. I'm going to display it, and then I'm going to wait for half a second. I don't know if we've done sleep or not, but sleep is to pause the program. Nothing else happens while our program is sleeping. And it's common to do floats with a 0 in front of it, so it's easy to see that it is a float. And there we go. There's our random numbers. Makes it a little more dramatic if they go in instead of zoop. They go in at a little more dramatic rate. So you can use that in your programs. Most of our programs, we're going to have a main function in there of some sort. Or I should say, most of our programs from this point on are going to have a main function in them. So we've done 3 different things. We've done functions that just do something. Every time, the same exact thing. Here's one where we're passing information into a function. Here we are. Calculate total passes the data into here. It passes the information, the data, not the variable itself. This variable is separate from these variables. They're different altogether. And notice this one even has different names. Doesn't matter. This could have the same name, but they are 2 separate variables because they're in 2 separate buckets. You can think of each of these as a bucket. You cannot climb out of the bucket and go into the next one, but you can carry things across with another bucket. Same thing here. In this case, we're returning a value. So 3 types of functions. One just does something the same way every time. Another one passes arguments in, and it'll do something different every time. Some do both. They pass arguments in and return a value. We'll see all those different combinations as we go. Now, the other thing we looked at is modules. So here's my message module. I can reuse this again and again and again. I would import the module, call the module dot whatever the name of the function is. So I can reuse things over and over and over again. Well, there we are. Functions are fun. We're going to have fun with functions. We'll see you on the flip side.